podcast is making me thirsty. The number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is 2 Up and 2 Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
All right. Welcome back, thirsty fans, to another episode of 2 Up and 2 Down. And we're going right back to the beginning, season 1, with a Male Unbonding episode. So, Chris, start us off. What's your first up here?
Male Unbonding, season 1, 4th episode ever, okay? This was June 14th of 1990, written by Jerry and Larry. You'll never believe what it went up against that night. It went up against the NBA Finals. This was the last year the NBA Finals on CBS, and it was Game 5. The Pistons beat the Trailblazers. All right? Isaiah scored 24. Johnson Petrovic was on the Trailblazers that year. Didn't play this final game. Needless to say, Seinfeld beat the NBA Finals that night. For the next 10 years, Jordan would take the ratings to another level and probably beat everybody. But here we go. All right, Male Unbonding. My first up is, I love the scene at Monk's after Jerry gives the news that he's breaking up with Joel, and he just bursts out crying. You know, you're my best friend. And Jerry's response is, best friend? I've never been to your apartment. Love that line. I'm not going to say we've all been there, but, you know, someone just becomes really attached to you, and Jerry was trying to get rid of him, and this guy just completely turned into a complete wreck, and it turns out they really weren't that close, obviously, because, you know, he's never been to his apartment, but it's funny how, you know, people see things through different lenses. Obviously, Joel is an interesting character, but love that scene at Monk's where he breaks down in front of Jerry, which, you know, is the theme and the concept of this whole episode. So that's my first up.
Thank you, Chris. Tony, over to you. What do you got for your first up?
Yeah, is that the first of the games? Was it Pistons Trailblazers? That was an NBA game. That used to be the finals was the name of it. I think that was the first one. Was that Pistons Trailblazers season?
Oh, like the Sega or something?
Yeah, the Sega. Yeah, I think
probably.
Yeah. Listen. First, as I mentioned, season 1. You know, I know where Pink Hats are going to go with this one. So we'll get there as we go through this. Season 1. Jerry's the main draw here, right? They're still kind of using him. They haven't gone to really pushing Costanza episodes until season 2. So Jerry's the focal point of this, obviously. So it lends itself to that up I just gave. I do like Jerry's line there. We'll get to everything else in a second, but to that point. So my up. I'm going to use this as my up. So my up is all of the stand-up. It's the way the show. This was the show, folks. I mean, it actually worked for his opening stand-up. Men working, you know, other men coming over, looking, they want to be around people that are working. I love that. Love that stand-up he has. You know, the construction sites, the whole thing. And then his second stand-up is right where they were talking about breaking up with guys. You know, breaking up with friends. He does a whole stand-up about the bank right after they left the bank. I mean, it's all intertwined. I believe there's might be 4 stand-ups, I believe, in the whole thing. And each one of them matches perfectly with what's going on in the episode. They cut right to it. And they're good bits. They're very good bits. The bank bit's great with the line. The construction site bit's great. The breaking up with the guy, with a friend is great. Ending with a friend. You know, this was the show, folks, and it's clear as day in this episode. It's a major up with me. I think it worked really well. You know, this is what probably sold everyone at NBC. Like, we got something here. I mean, it all worked really well. Jerry's stand up, how he gets his material, they break it in. Each scene ends, and then he does the stand up about that scene right after that. So I thought it flowed really nicely. That's my first up.
Thank you, Tony, for that breakdown there. So, Chris, over to you. What's your second up?
Love the stand-up. I mean, talking about waiting for someone to die is the only way you could break up with a male friend. And he's like, you know, 2 guys will become friends just because they're 2 guys, you know, because it's sports and women. You know, without that, there's nothing to talk about. They'll just talk about, like, you know, what's in the refrigerator. So just Great stuff. Specifically that one I loved. All right. 2 ups, 2 downs. So I did. All right. Second up. Here we go. I enjoyed there wasn't a lot of Elaine, but I enjoyed the Elaine when she met Joel and they were making excuses in front of him. Oh no, we have that that thing, da, da, da. And he's going through all the games like nonstop, and you could just tell the interesting chemistry, obviously that Jerry and Elaine had. And I love Joel being like, "Oh, this is your nephew." Like he was just that guy. Kevin Dunn obviously was Hornick. Hornick, yeah, Hornick, right? Uh, and it's funny, it that George didn't know who he was. It kind of tickers back to those future episodes with the summer George and all that stuff. But I did like Elaine and Jerry making excuses, and they were terrible excuses. You could tell they weren't the liars like Costanza is. If George was there, he would have been like rip roaring. So the Jerry and Elaine stuff I liked. I liked she wasn't in a lot, but I did like a lot of their conversations and the writing between those two. Second up.
Yeah, Chris, like you said, Joel Hornick was played by Kevin Dunn. That was a great casting choice there. So, Tony, over to you. What do you got for your second up?
I'm sensing, O'Hara's very, very enthusiastic with his ups, and some of his ups, back with. We'll get there, but my next up though is going to be the K-Man. I think he's got a lot of Kramer in him. Obviously, he's not Kramer quite yet, but he's got a lot of Kramer in him here. His hair's kind of getting there in the beginning. I know he wears the hat later on, but he was on the phone. He got a cure for cancer. It's a great Kramer line. He's always speculative on Western medicine, on Eastern medicine and then Western medicine. I never know which one's which, but the whole thing there, doesn't trust doctors. First mention of Kramer Industries for all you pink hats, pizza place, make your own pie, obviously. Just you're getting Kramer here a little bit. You're getting to understand the K-Man and where he's coming from. I'm not sure you got so much of that before this episode. I know it's the 4th episode, but even in season 2, there were some episodes where he was still kind of feeling out the character. So I think he took bits of this one and kind of used it further on down the line because I think he was getting there. And I thought he was good. I liked him. Shows that he's friends with Hornick, goes to the game with Hornick, talk to him on the phone. This is how Kramer is, right? He'll just pick up a conversation and he's off and running. So very much like the Stranded with our other friend there. What's his face? Yeah, I mean, I think the K-Man deserves an up in this episode. So that's my second up.
What do you think of Michael Chiklis over at the Stranded episode? The actor that played the party host. All right. So thank you, Tony. For that up. So Chris, over to you. We're gonna start our downs. What's your first?
Yeah, listen, you got to be enthusiastic with ups, and you got to be a downer with downs. That's what we do here: 2 ups and 2 downs. So, I'm gonna go kind of the George storyline, like with his girlfriend, like no, like. Well, I don't even know. First, she didn't have a name. They didn't show her. It's kind of odd. Like, for George to be George, you need to see him with people. Him as a storyteller. He's not Kramer, right? He needs to act and show himself, and that was missing. So whether it was the storyline, like when he talked about the floss in the elevator, and then it dovetailed into the bank scene that Tony mentioned, the stand-up a line to. I don't know. I didn't get into it. He's talking about the egg salad. Like, you want to picture him with risotto, and like that. Like that got brought to life. He didn't bring it to life, telling the story. So first down, I'm going George's storyline, if you will, and lack of a girlfriend presence on camera. And who knows? Maybe they had small budgets back then. They couldn't afford it. I don't know, but it didn't work.
That's like a deep dive down there. So good pull there. Over to you, Tony. What do you got for your first down?
Yeah, I mean, spot on. I'm gonna piggyback off that. I mean, this is what I was trying to get at earlier. Their first 4 episodes are all focused on Jerry. Jerry's the main guy. It's Jerry's show. They focused on Jerry, and George didn't have any. George is doing Woody Allen in this whole episode. I mean, that's what O'Hara's getting at. He's just talking. He's doing his own. I don't know what to do. He's talking like Woody Allen. It's all dialogue. O'Hara's spot on. It's all dialogue. That's what I wrote. You don't see George because George isn't a character yet. He doesn't become George until season 2 when Larry David starts really writing him and then Jason Alexander takes the whole new level. But this episode, I totally agree. He's doing Woody Allen. He's just talking. There's no real story there. I'm going to piggyback though. I agree with O'Hara's down, but the down I wrote down is not only all that. What is his outfits? He's not George in his outfits. The fanny pack. I know Jerry makes a joke about it, but that V-neck in the bank. I mean, they didn't have George at all ready at all. They didn't know who he was yet. They thought Jerry was the main guy. Early on, it was always about, even in the pilot, George was a smart one. George was telling Jerry, signals, Jerry, everything happened to Jerry. And then they switched it, in season 2 and beyond, where everything was happening to George, to O'Hara's point. Spot on. And I'm just going to pile on. I wrote down George's outfits. I think it all ties in. I thought that V-neck sweater he wears in the bank. What are we doing? We talked to Stephanie Kenny. I don't think she was there yet, though. I think it might have just been Charmaine. But yeah, I mean, just all around, they didn't have George figured out yet, and it shows. So I'm going to piggyback on that and give us the George's outfits on top of everything else. So that's my first down.
I almost mentioned George's outfit after Chris's first down, but I just hold off because I wanted to let you guys get through your downs before I said it. And they're enough. You brought it up. So thanks, Tony, for that mention. So Chris, back to you. What's your second down?
Second down, I got a couple here, but I'm gonna pivot a little bit. It's more on pace and just how it started. And I agree, the stand-up is great, but the opening stand-up was too long. It was 90 seconds. Like, that could have been just quick and we could have got into it. And I did enjoy, to your point, the breakup and, the quick hitters that were in the middle of the show, the bank thing, the build thing, the that thing, this thing. This one was too long. I was almost like, am I on the same episode? Like, it just kept going and going. And then the pace just dragged into literally that first scene, to Tony's point, of the fanny pack, like the long elevator ride. Like, it was a very slow beginning. And it started with the stand-up. It was just too long. And again, they're getting their feet wet. They're figuring things out. To Tony's point, it's all on Jerry. But they could have made that a little snappier, like the other stand-up. So that's my second down. It's not a huge down, but it's kind of set the tone. And when you set the tone with something long in the beginning, you don't fall in love with the show.
Thank you, Chris. So Tony, over to you. What do you got for your second down?
Yeah, solid point. I wrote that down too. Slowness, pace. I mean, the opening scene was really confusing. You're right. They were elevated in the hallway shots and the whole thing with the key. Along the same lines as pace, but a little different, I think, I'm going to use. And it's interesting you gave Elaine an up. Speaking of pace, and also just to piggyback off that a little bit more, I mean, this was what the show was, right? They didn't have these two guys didn't know what the hell they were doing. We saw that in the pilot when they wrote, how are we going to write 20? I come in, you say hi, you say hello. That probably is where they were at. They're like, well, would Jerry ever stand up for 2 minutes? What the hell? They're trying to take up time, right? But listen, you don't see Elaine. I counted, speaking of 17 minutes before you even see Elaine. I mean, I think she's missed. I got to say, you can see why they kind of bring her in more and more as we go, but definitely missed. I mean, you're watching that episode. I'm like, wait, I know Elaine's in this episode because there's only a couple she wasn't in. This wasn't one of them. 17 minutes in, we finally see her. And she did what she could with it, like O'Hara said, gave it up there. But I'm going to give it down to O'Hara's point. It's more to do with the pace and the slowness. And like, we never see Elaine. Like, there's just not a lot going on. There's that whole first scene, to O'Hara's point, takes up a huge chunk. She could have been in, and if that happened later on, she'd be in. They just sort of started that whole conversation with George in Jerry's apartment with Elaine there, probably chiming in about stuff. Who knows? But they didn't know that yet. So it's missed. Elaine just not enough, and she comes in way too late for me. So that's my down.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, for pointing that out. So over to you, Chris. Your final thoughts and ultimately your grade for Male Unbonding. What do you got?
He's spot on. I wrote the same thing. Elaine, I actually put 17 and 30 seconds. It's just there's nowhere. Where was she? But when she did get there, she was good. But you can't have one of your main characters not show up until 17 minutes. You're right. You almost forgot about her. She definitely could have been there and added a lot to kind of the malaise of Jerry and George. She could have kind of poked some holes. Who knows? But to your point, they were this was a work in progress. So, with that said, my grade, male and I got two grades here. Sentimentality. I don't want to go too low because it's foundational. But listen, folks. Tony loved Kramer. We could use more Kramer. Could use more Elaine. All right. And George was just not that he wasn't a good character, but they weren't using him properly. Like I said, he wasn't a storyteller. Kevin Dunn, I thought was fantastic. I thought he was a really solid casting. Him hanging out with Kramer, Kramer gets along with everybody. I would have been friends with Stalin if he had a ping pong table. I love that whole, just because I have a ping pong, I could be friends with the rest of my life. The premise was great. You can't knock the premise. And again, that's what this show's about. Relationships. It's typically about the females, obviously, and breaking up with them. But so this was an interesting twist. I give him credit for taking that shot so early, and I think it worked. But it didn't work enough to get it where the standard of the show. So, long story short, a lot of missing pieces. But it's still Larry and Jerry. It's still Jerry. I'm going to give it a clean C for the Male Unbonding. I had C- was there, was tinkering. But I think the more I think about it and kind of the chance they took on this premise, I thought was pretty interesting. So C for Male Unbonding.
Thank you, Chris. Tony, what do you got? What's your grade and thoughts here?
Yeah, that's some solid analysis right there, folks. Listen, I think you like Don Hornick a little more than I did. He was an up and a down for me, so I didn't even use him because I loved him at the end with the Air Jordan stuff. I didn't so much like the crying, though I did like Jerry's line. But I thought yelling at the turkey, he's a turkey, real turkey. That whole thing. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. I think you might have given him more credence than I'm giving him. Listen, I'm going to preface my grade with I'll take this slowness we're talking about and the pace we're talking about and the Noah Lane we're talking about and the not quite George yet over 8 and 9 any day. So I think we're both on agreement on that. Listen, I hear what O'Hara's saying. I wrote down 2 grades too. I can't go as high as a C though. I know sentimental. I even wrote down sentimentality wants me to give it a C, but I'm gonna. I wrote down D plus C minus. I'm gonna go up a little bit. I'm gonna meet O'Hara. I think Male Unbonding is a C minus. I think that's fair. I think we're being fair. I think Pink Hats. Here you got it. Okay, we gave a season 1 episode a C minus and a C. It's it is slow. George is not George. He's Woody Allen, basically, like I said. It's just writing, but sentimentality and foundation is enough for me to keep it in C range. I'm not arguing a C, but I'm going C minus Male Unbonding.
All right, yeah, there you have it, folks. I think you guys are fair with that because I just did this on a rewatch too, and I actually thought it was better than I remembered. But you guys gave it all valid points as to why it deserves a C and C minus. So again, appreciate everybody turning in to our episodes here, and we'll see you on our next one.